now Vic Country and SA, which was, pardon me, which was equally a pretty entertaining game, and it did end up pretty close come the end of it. I'm loading the scoreline here, but it was 87-79 in favour of Vic Country, and yeah, the Country just kind of had that lead at the start of the game. I think they got it out to 22 points. SA came firing back in that third quarter. It was at 50 apiece at one point. I'm pretty sure they kicked a couple of points to get ahead SA, but then Vic Country, it was just the class that SA typically don't have with their kicking efficiency. Most of the time, Vic Country were able to say, yeah, we'll take this game on and win it. And they did.
You talked about the fact that Vic Country were able to skip out to that really strong early lead. Yep. We'll start with Jasper Alger. I thought it was off the back of what he did, particularly in the first quarter. He positions himself so well inside 50. He's got the speed, he's got the smarts, and he's so clean as well. Kicked 2 first quarter goals. Is really proactive, really elusive, and has a really strong skill set for a small forwards. He's averaging 4 goals per game for Caulfield Grammar and had that really dazzling Vic Country trial game as well. Now he's been able to convert it into the national championships. He's a boy that's from Warragul, so he played for Gippsland last year, but now with his Caulfield Grammar commitments, he's up in Melbourne and playing for Oakley, and looking forward to seeing what we get from him for the rest of the championships. Yeah,
he seemed to take it to another level, and we saw glimpses of that at Oakley, and we probably both said, is he better off playing in a Gippy team where the talent, the depth isn't there as much compared to an Oakley where, especially with a full team, he's probably going to struggle to have those type of performances in an Oakley team. But he was super crafty. I mean, got himself into space that many times and was rewarded for his ability to find space, getting good spots for his midfielders to find him inside forward 50, and he was efficient as well. And that's what you need to be up forward sometimes. Just kick the goals that you get the opportunity to kick, and he was super good, and that first half especially just set the tone for them early, and that's 3 goals you might not have expected from a player like that ultimately can win you a game.
Yeah, certainly. Someone else who was pretty productive in that first quarter, I thought, was Harvey Langford. A couple of clearances, 5 disposals, and he set up a really late goal to Joe Berry. Joe Berry himself played a pretty good game, showed his speed. Yeah. But Harvey Langford's second quarter was where he really came into it, I thought, where his ability to link up possession and create some overlap run on transition was really good. His kicking was quite important on the day as well, and took a couple of important marks, or at least created a couple of important overhead efforts and showed his quick hands as well. He's a Dandenong Stingrays co-captain, and his form has been pretty good recently. He's probably just been overshadowed by Cooper Hines, who's been as good as anyone in the Talent League in the last 5 or 6 weeks. So really good to see him get his reward for effort in this game.
I'll keep moving because you summed it up pretty well. And Xavier Ivicic is the next one I want to talk about in terms of players who turned it on from the start. But I thought his intercepting presence in the forward half of the ground was terrific. He was so switched on really early, and we know how quick and bursty he is as a player, but was able to just get the ball moving forward, link up, similar to what Harvey Langford did, but I guess in a more contested space. That was Ivicic's game, as he's a bit of a smaller size. But yeah, it was really refined, I thought, with his disposal. I thought at times probably could have got it off a little quicker, and it would have helped him in terms of efficiency moving forward. But I thought he really turned it on. He took on that almost midfield type role, just moving across the ground, but it was really productive. I thought it died off a little as the game went on, but I thought early on he just was switched on compared to most, and he was ready to take the game on.
Well, I was surprised to see him play as almost as a full-time midfielder. I certainly expected him to be a forward on the day, and he went to obviously the first centre bounce and pretty much stayed in there for the rest of the day. But he adds that real speedy dynamic to the midfield, and he's a really smart footballer as well. Moves through traffic quite nicely, so it was good to see him have that strong performance. One that it would be remiss if we continued with anyone else now but Toby Travaglia, who was the clear standout player on the day. And I think what he's done this year is every time there's been a big game, he's stood up. Obviously the 2 AFL Academy games and now this game. And you associate run and dash and flair with Toby Travaglia, but in all 3 of those games, it's been his defensive application, his repeat efforts, his competitiveness, and his intercept marking, which has really caught the eye. And we know he's got that dash as well, and he showed that flair on the day, but certainly another big performance to add to his growing CV.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you summed it up again well, but it was really the defensive application, like the little things like, just consistent tackle pressure, those repeat efforts that not really his game. Like in terms of he's just that real quick rebounds, reads the game so well, but it's those little things when the ball comes to ground that loved from him that just added that extra element to his game. And yeah, he's been so good in all those rep games.
Yeah, if I could just add one thing. I'd almost argue now that is his game. I'd almost argue his defensive stuff has gone past
into that,
his offensive game. The reason I say that, his disposal can sometimes let him down, whereas you always know what you're going to get in terms of work rate. And he took a really important intercept mark late in the game as well as a contested mark. He just finds a way. He's a really good player. So, yeah, good to see him play well. Well, I think the other, there's probably some others we should touch on. Xavier Lindsay being chief among them. I thought he worked his way into the game pretty well. His kicking efficiency and his overlap run was at its trademark best. Ollie Hannaford, you really brought that pressure and strength and toughness as well. His closing speed a couple of times was there. So, yeah, he probably played stronger in the second half than in the first half. And Lockie Jakes, I quite liked his game. Just a nice role player in the back line and certainly showed his X factor. He's got that athleticism. I know you talked about it last week, Nathan, and he rebounds really well and is able to take a grab overhead.
The other couple I might mention, Harry Charleston, I thought was quite good for his first outing. Yeah, it was his typical productiveness out of D50 with that speed to move the ball forward and got off his opponent quite a lot and was just able to generate quick speed and move it forward, especially to the outside. And yeah, even had some nice moments, with a nice clean spin with a couple around him to move it out. So I thought that was quite productive from him. I thought he went up to that next level quite seamlessly. I'll just kind of touch back on Joe Berry, who we mentioned before, but was super effective inside forward 50 as that real danger small forward who popped up at the right moments, kicked some crucial set shot goals, and had a really nice, drop of the ball, runs onto it. Yep. Runs into goal, so it was pretty prototype small forward stuff from Joe Berry and pretty much picks up where he's left off at Murray.
Absolutely. Cooper Hines was quite effective in the forward line as well, I thought. With his strength, he's really hard to beat one-on-one. But we'll move on to SA. And Nathan, I know you were pretty high on the game of Jacob Newton.
100% I was. I thought he was arguably the reason SA were in this game, especially come that third quarter when they needed someone to stand up. He was 100% there. Just terrific forward presence. Was really tough with his body work to outmuscle a few of his opponents, generate some space, and got in great spots inside 50. He kicked really big set shot goals and not easy ones at that. Ones from 45 metres out, on that slight angle where 50-50 shots, but he was just terrific all day, I thought. And whilst the stats might not reflect that he was, one of their top on the ground, was just super impactful in those moments that really mattered for SA. Finished with 3 goals, and I thought he did everything he possibly could to have willed SA to the finish. But it wasn't to be. But he was terrific for them.
A couple who there's going to be natural interest in, obviously Ben Campriali and Tyler Welsh both played pretty strong games. Ben Campriali found plenty of the footy, and Tyler Welsh really stepped up, I thought, in the second half. Yeah,
I mean, I'll start with Tyler Welsh, and I watched a game of his last week where he kicked 8 goals in the Samful 18s, and he's an odd player to play on, and not that I'll ever get to experience that, but he just turns it on for a matter of minutes, and it's a weird style where he's in most plays he doesn't really impact, and that's probably the honesty there. He's not really that impactful when a big contest is there. He's good one-on-one. That's his strength, and that's where he'll typically win most of his footy. When he needs to impact at ground level, he's probably not there as much compared to his other forwards, but he was probably able to get the better of Mitch Lloyd in the end, and I thought Mitch Lloyd did relatively well.
He held a good account of himself,
especially given the size difference. I mean, Mitch Lloyd's not, he's that kind of that leaner half-back type that can roll out, whereas Welsh, Welsh he's big. He's a huge kid to play on, but yeah, created separation a couple times and ended with 4 goals, and that's just what you're going to get. Nearly kicked one late. I think that's what put him within 8 points in the end. But yeah, he's an odd player to play on because he just has his moments, and he'll be quiet for what is a 100-minute game. He'll be quiet for probably 80 minutes of it. So hard player to play on. I'll go to Ben Camporelli now, who, yeah, he was one of their best. I've been pretty critical of him, and maybe that's just as a Carlton supporter, that's like I want to get the best of him when he comes to the club, right? But I do criticise his kicking quite a lot. If you watch his game closely, and both of them, Ben and Lucas, they kick really weirdly. And I think it's a general SA thing. SA kicks a bit different. I don't know why, but they kick a little differently. That's how that's where I was kind of frustrated with Ben early, because he'll get himself into good spots. He's terrific around the contest. He'll get himself into a bit of space, and then the kick goes wayward, and it kind of messes up that transition down the ground. But in saying that, in and around the contest, he's 100%, right? That ability to win a hard ball, get it out quickly by hand. He's super efficient. His work rate is terrific and one of the best on the ground. And I was throwing up. I'm like, does he go in my top 5? Purely because that kicking efficiency is like, well, when you look at the game in a whole, it does let him down at times. But, you know, if you take Ben Camporelli out of that game, the SA get that close? No. Yep. So, yeah, that's why I had him up there in the end.
A couple of others to just very quickly touch on. Tate Delmenico, I thought, had some really important efforts in defence, a really important tackle, and Angus Clark as well. Both of them probably pieced together pretty close to full games.
Yeah, Delmenico was terrific, I thought, with his defensive applications. Different to Travaglia in the sense that it was his one-on-one ability to shut down his defender. Probably struggled a little bit when it went out the back, but do most defenders, you know. So, but he was terrific. He was, you know, pressure to force a few holding the ball calls as well. His one-on-one strength, it stood up. Clean hands when it went to ground as well. And yeah, I just thought that intent from him was terrific. Whether, you know, it shows on the stat sheet again, his opponent probably, I think his direct opponent kicked 2 goals, but I still thought from a defensive standpoint, you need players like that in your team. Angus Clark, I just thought he was super efficient with his offensive flair out of D50, clean distributor, had some really good defensive moments where he was able to spoil a few one-on-ones. But in the end, I think Joe Berry probably got the best of him with those 3 goals, but I still thought tactically he stood up for SA and was able to provide that drive out of D50.